The book of Genesis contains two accounts of creation. In the first account that we find in the book of Genesis chapter 1, we are told, chapter 1 from verse 26 to 28, we are told that God created humanity in his image. Male and female, he created them. And he asked them, commanded them to increase and multiply and to be the custodians of the universe. The first reading of today is taken from the second account of creation from Genesis chapter 2, verse 18 to 24. And we are told that Adam, who was created first, felt lonely because he had no soulmate. God brought different kinds of animals to Adam to name them, but none of them, even, we like pets. You may like a dog, and your dog is there, you talk to the dog, oh, how are you? You say, But you cannot communicate as a soulmate is communicating with you. So eventually, God took a rib from the side of Adam, and then through that Eve was created. This was a metaphor about marriage. Obeying the commandment of God to increase and multiply. For we are told that when Adam saw Eve, he said, wow, at last, bone from my bones, flesh from my flesh, she shall be called woman. In Hebrew, man is called Ish, and the woman is called Isha. Just like in English, you have man, and then you have woman. And then we are told then that this is why a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and both become one body. That means they begin a new family. See, that's what it means, a new family. The Lord is good. Another time. Yes. Now the fact that Eve was created from the bone, from the rib of Adam, we know that the rib covers the heart, you see? So what it means then is that husband and wife are meant to be companions, supporting each other, sharing in the joys and the sorrows of each other. We know that life is a mixed bag. True? The Lord is good. Are you with me? Life is a mixed bag. So also marriage is a mixed bag. So you share in the joys and the sorrows of your spouse. But abusiveness, violence, is not part of the joys and the sorrows of marriage. You might get married and then you don't have a child. Okay, that's part of the sorrow. Or your spouse might become sick. Or sometimes you might have some economic problems. Okay, that's part of the joys and the sorrows. But abusiveness and violence is not part of the joys and sorrows of married life. If you are experiencing violence in your marriage, talk out. Don't keep quiet. It is not part of the joys. It is not part of the sorrows of married life. In the gospel of today, the Pharisees asked Jesus, is it right for a man to divorce his wife? Why they asked this question? As they asked Jesus this question, they had at the back of their mind the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 24, verse 1. We know the content, don't we? The book of Deuteronomy says, After a man has married a wife, and then later he dislikes her because of some of the defects she notices in her, he can take up a certificate and write, a writ of divorce and hand it over to her, and then ask her, okay, you can now go on your way. The Lord is good. Be on your way, yes. Are we in business? So this was why they asked Jesus that question. Is it against the law to divorce your wife? And Jesus asked them, what did Moses say? So this was what they quoted to Jesus. So Jesus, in answering them the question, went back to the beginning, went back to the book of Moses, when God created humanity. And Jesus told them, God created humanity male and female. It is the will of God that a man and a woman should get married, and it is for life. It is not just for 1 month or two, no. That's the will of God. And then he also made them understand, that the precepts that is contained in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 24, from verse 1, was as a consequence of sin. Because of the fall of humanity in Adam and Eve, because of sin, that is why people start practicing divorce. That was not the will of God. That was what Jesus answered them. And now, just as Jesus frowned at divorce, so also the church does not support divorce. But the church does not also support the idea of a spouse being abused, a spouse being violent to the other. The church does not support that someone should remain in a marriage and be killed. Are you with me? The church does not support that. And I am going to read from the Code of Canon Law. From the Code of Canon Law, Canon 1153. Canon 1153, because that is the law of the church. So I am going to read so that you know. And you can read that after Mass. Canon 1153 says, a spouse who occasions grave danger of soul or body to the other or to the children, or otherwise makes the common life unduly difficult, provides the other spouse with a reason to leave. By a decree of the ordinary, or the ordinary is the bishop, or if there is danger in delay, even on his or her own authority. So, if you have become a terror to your spouse, the church says the bishop can write a decree and say, please, you leave, go there. Let the man stay there until the problem is solved. And if you think before you can get a paper from the bishop, the man will kill you, please pack and leave. That's what the church teaches. The church does not believe that someone should remain in marriage and be killed. Marriage is for the good of the spouse, of the spouses, to take care of each other, to love each other, to cherish each other, to share in each other's joys and sorrow, but not a place to brutalize the other. The church does not support that. Are you with me? The Lord is good. And all the time. When a marriage becomes very toxic and irredeemable, the church supports what it calls annulment. Annulment is not the same with divorce. Annulment goes back to the origin of the marriage, to the first day of the marriage to check whether everything was okay. There are 3 things needed to say that a marriage is valid. If any of them is missing, even though the priest was there and you promised each other for better and for worse, and 2 million people came to witness your wedding, that wedding is still invalid if 1 or 2 of these 3 points are missing. Are you listening? Are you with me? Yes, good. The Lord is good. Another time. One is what you call capacity to get married. Now, I'm a priest, and all of you know me here as a priest. If I came from Nigeria to Australia, no one knows me as a priest, and I decide to get married. You see? Now, 5 million people can come to my wedding. That wedding can be done by a priest in front of 2 witnesses, but that wedding is still invalid because I'm a Catholic priest. You see what I mean? Or a man who is imported and hid it from the wife. 20 million people can come to the wedding. Everything can be done, but that wedding is still invalid because there is a deceit. Again, for marriage, consent is very important. So if someone forced you to marry somebody, even though 60 million people came to the wedding and everything was done well, in the future, if it is proven that actually it was not someone threatening you, that if you do not marry this person, you'll be killed, that marriage is still invalid because there was coercion. So when a marriage has problem, the church goes back to the origins of the marriage to find out if everything was okay. If everything was okay at the beginning, no problem, no, that marriage will remain. Even though the people separate, but the church will not annul the marriage. But if the church looks into it and finds out that, yes, from the beginning, there was some issues, then the church can then grant annulment. The third thing is what they call form. For a Catholic, you need a priest and 2 witnesses, or a deacon or a bishop and 2 witnesses to get married. So if you get married without the priest or the deacon or whatever, then the church does not recognize that marriage. And if you marry someone who is not a Catholic, for the wedding to take place, you need a dispensation, normally given by the bishop. So we often apply for that for people who are marrying non-Catholics. So when a wedding has a problem, the church looks and see. If there was a problem from the outset, yes, that marriage can be annulled. But if the marriage, everything was good, maybe because you married the man because you like the hair, and and now after 20 years, the man's head is now like a highway. And you say, oh, I no longer like him. No, I want divorce. The church will say, no. You see? Or maybe you get married and you like the woman, or you like the teeth, very white teeth, and now something has happened and she has lost all her teeth. And you say, oh, no, I don't want to marry anymore. No, this one, no divorce. Are you with me? The Lord is good. Another time. So to bring my homily to a close, I pray that God may grant married couples the grace they need to love and cherish each other. May they stand shoulder to shoulder and hands in gloves as they tackle difficult situations in their married life, through Christ our Lord. The Lord is good. Another time.